Donald Trump screamed bloody murder when he saw the editing that took place here, demanded the transcripts, and said that it was election interference. 60 Minutes responded and said, "We're not going to give you the transcripts, but we'd love for Donald Trump to come on our show and he can have his say." And Donald Trump said, "Screw you." You'll remember in the 2024 presidential campaign, Kamala Harris gave an interview to 60 Minutes. We were told at the time, I think, that it was 40 minutes of footage that they edited down for, concise purposes and better digestibility for a 20-minute segment. By the way, this is something that always bothered me. 60 Minutes, yeah, we talked to her for 40 minutes, but then we edited it down to 20 minutes because we wanted to make it, a little bit more efficient for our viewers. Donald Trump sat with Joe Rogan for 3 hours and had tens of millions of views. It's over 100 million views at this point. Why does 60 Minutes act like, well, the American viewer, they won't sit for 40 minutes of a presidential candidate, so we've got to edit it down to 20 minutes. Are you kidding me? They sat for 3 hours to watch Trump with Joe Rogan talk about literally everything. No, this had nothing to do with trying to make it a little bit more concise and a little bit more digestible because of the short attention span of the American viewer. No, it had to do with wanting to edit it and control the message to make Kamala Harris look as good as possible. We know that because we saw that one clip that they edited, right? And that all hell broke loose. People were calling for the transcript and the full video, and 60 Minutes refused to do so. Well, the new chairman of the FCC, Brendan Carr, demanded that CBS News hand this over because there are accusations of election tampering. And that would violate their FCC license and all the local cities where CBS affiliates have an FCC license. Well, 60 Minutes did so, and they didn't put any restrictions on the use of that footage. So Brendan Carr and the FCC, well, they put it out there for everybody to see. Jesse Waters last night had a breakdown of just how bad Kamala Harris really was and how much 60 Minutes tampered with the election.
Footage of Kamala Harris's 60 Minutes interview last October in the heat of the election. Harris, Hail Mary with CBS. But the network was caught deceptively editing this answer. Watch.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening. The Wall Street Journal said that that your administration has repeatedly been blindsided by Netanyahu. And in fact, he has rebuffed just about all of your administration's entreaties.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region. And we're not going to stop doing that. We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Trump sued CBS for $10 billion, and it looks like they might settle. But before that happens, the FCC released the full interview, unedited, and we have the tape. They talked for an hour and left a lot out. Here's an answer that never made air. Watch.
I'm trying to understand how it is that with this emphasis on the border, the numbers of crossings quadrupled under the first 3 years of the Biden-Harris administration. How did that happen?
There are a variety of factors that relate to what we have seen globally and what we are not immune from at our own border in terms of what we have seen in terms of surge of immigration and irregular migration. And there are solutions at hand, but we've got to have leaders who are solution oriented, which we've been and are.
God. And I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat right now talking about word salad. And I just want to admonish you and remind you that that's not fair to salad. Salad actually does have some nutritional value. At the very least, bare minimum, it's roughage. It can help clean out your bowels. Whereupon watching Kamala Harris give an answer like that, it has the opposite effect. You feel a little tight. trying to make sense of it. But it's certainly tossed salad in the truest sense of the word. That question and answer with regard to our border was left on the cutting room floor. 60 Minutes, CBS News, they're not in the business of news. They're not in the business of delivering information to their viewers. They're in a whole other business. Sure looks like propaganda to me. How could that question and answer not be relevant to the viewers of CBS News during the 2024 presidential election cycle when border control and immigration consistently was either the number one issue or the number two issue for voters? And that question and that outrageous answer, where she basically said, I mean, I'll translate it for you because I've been watching this woman for so many years that I can now kind of figure out what she's trying to say. When she was asked, well, you put an emphasis on the border and yet the crossings quadrupled. Why is that? And she said, oh, it's happening all around the world. It's not just us. Same thing in England and in Italy and in France. It's just a thing. I don't know. And 60 Minutes, wisely, I guess, watched that and said, yeah, we can't put that out there. Leave that on the floor. You remember that for weeks after this aired, people were demanding Catherine Herridge and various other former CBS News, Cheryl Atkinson, that's the person I was just trying to come up with, and other former CBS News employees said, oh, there's a precedent for this. Whenever there's a question about how an interview on 60 Minutes has been edited, they have released the full transcript. They've released the full raw footage in the past. They did that with Trump, in fact, you'll remember. So why isn't 60 Minutes releasing the transcript? Well, of course, they knew why they wouldn't release the transcript because it would hurt Kamala Harris. That's why. And only because Trump won are we actually getting to see it. By the way, what was that last thing she said here about what's needed to secure the border?
At our own border, in terms of what we have seen in terms of surge of immigration and irregular migration. And there are solutions at hand, but we've got to have leaders who are solution oriented, which we've been and are.
Yeah, we definitely need leaders who are solutions oriented. They have not been or are, because that's how we got into the mess. But boy, for the last 2 weeks, we've certainly seen what it looks like to have a leader who is solutions oriented. The solution is shut down the border and find the criminals who have crossed the border illegally and deport them. That's what we're doing. Man, but there's more, actually. It gets worse for Kamala Harris. And I want to remind you, it's worse for CBS News. Can I say it again? This is election interference. CBS News used their power under the cloak and dagger and disguise of journalism and freedom of the press, and they hid the truth from their viewers. They meddled in the election. Didn't work, but they certainly did it.
CBS also cut out their host pressing Kamala on how she's going to pay for all of her giveaways.
If all of this makes so much sense, why has this not been done? You're dealing with a Congress that is divided, that many are in opposition to not only you, but your policies. So how are you going to make this come true?
Bill, if I approached my life as though, well, it's never been done before, therefore it cannot be done, I wouldn't be sitting here in this interview with you. That's the truth.
Then 60 Minutes tossed Kamala a big fat softball, and she swung and missed.
The most basic of questions. Why do you want to be president of the United States?
There are many reasons, but probably first and foremost, I truly believe in the promise of America. I do. And I love the American people. You know, we are a people who have ambition and aspirations and dreams and optimism and hope.
That's why you want to run. That's why you want to be.
That's why I'm
president.
running. That and some other reasons.
But you're asking the American people to make you the most powerful person on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you deserve the American people's votes?
Well, first of all, I have a career and a history of being very clear that I think of my role of leadership, and in particular now for the last 4 years as vice president and moving forward as president, if the voters will have me, as being a leader on behalf of all Americans.
Wow. That's just um you can see why they left it on the cutting room floor. Again, CBS News refused to let their viewers see that train wreck of an answer. But that last one in particular requires a little bit of historic perspective for some of you young whippersnappers out there, or for maybe some of you older people who have faulty memories. It was 1980 when Senator Edward Kennedy, the brother of RFK and JFK, he began a quixotic campaign for president against a sitting Democrat, Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter was challenged in a primary effort by Massachusetts Senator Ted Kennedy. Kennedy decided that Carter was weak, which he was, and he was vulnerable, and Kennedy tried to get the nomination from a sitting president, not unlike what RFK Jr. did or tried to do against Biden this last time around. Unlike the Democrat Party under Biden, Jimmy Carter's Democrat Party was a little more fair, and they said, okay, fine, you want to challenge him, go ahead. He lost the challenge. And part of the reason why Ted Kennedy's ambitions to sit in the White House fell apart was because he gave, believe it or not, a 60 Minutes interview. The interviewer was Roger Mudd, and Roger Mudd asked Ted Kennedy a very simple question. Why do you want to be president? And he couldn't answer. He fumbled and he threw out some word salad with a Boston accent, similar to what Kamala Harris just said, bromides and platitudes and things about America. And it just reeked of panic. It reeked of a guy who didn't really have a reason why he was running for president other than his name was Kennedy. I mean, that's really what was conveyed. What do you mean, why am I running for president? Because I'm Kennedy, damn it. I deserve this. Right. I was born for it. Why would you even ask such a question? Kennedy was toast. It was over. He probably would have lost to Reagan, but maybe not as badly as Carter did. But 60 Minutes knew that history very well. 60 Minutes knew that when a politician is asked, why are you running for president, and they can't give a good answer, well, the only obvious answer to glean from it is it's because of your own narcissistic, blind ambition. And it's really all about you and what you want to achieve, and it has nothing to do with the American people. I mean, we saw that play out in Kamala Harris's campaign, where it was all about Joy Summer and Brat Summer and breaking the glass ceiling, first woman, first Black woman, first Indian woman, first this and that and that, and it's all about what I am and who I represent, and nothing to do with you. And 60 Minutes, well, they edited that out and they left it on the floor of the editing room, and you never got to see it. Boy, they tried really hard to tip the scales in this election. They tried, but they couldn't do it because you're smart enough to see through it. And because what 60 Minutes represents and CBS News represents is now irrelevant. You see, the other part of this story from the 2024 presidential election is Donald Trump. Donald Trump screamed bloody murder when he saw the editing that took place here, demanded the transcripts, and said that it was election interference. 60 Minutes responded and said, we're not going to give you the transcripts, but we'd love for Donald Trump to come on our show and he can have his say. And Donald Trump said, screw you. Donald Trump told 60 Minutes to go pound sand. He said, I don't need you. You need me. I will not go on 60 Minutes. I will not do anything with CBS News. I'll go sit with Joe Rogan for 3 hours and I'll let the American people decide. And that was the game changer. 60 Minutes has been rendered irrelevant along with the rest of the legacy media. Not uncoincidentally, that's why I wrote my book. In fact, I've got a huge chapter in my book about the 60 Minutes fiasco. The book is called Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. And that's how I knew the story about Roger Mudd and Ted Kennedy off the top of my head. I just wrote about it. Check out my book and celebrate the death of the legacy media and 60 Minutes and CBS News, because they've been exposed and you just saw it firsthand. Have you seen the news from economists? They're forecasting a depression, not a recession, a depression by the year 2030. Well, unless something's done. See, we've got this perfect storm of Social Security and Medicare hitting a breaking point on the budget because the largest generation is hitting retirement. And then you've got a smaller workforce, meaning a smaller tax base to fund those programs. And then you got growing national debt, rising cost of living. It's a big problem. So I know you want the government to do something, but what are you doing personally to take control and protect your family for the future? Have you thought about gold? Well, gold can be a safe haven in hard economic times, and Birch Gold makes it easy to diversify a portion of your savings into physical gold. Birch Gold, they're the experts. They're going to help you transition an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, and it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. I want you to protect your future today. Text my name, Larry, Larry, to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold and get a copy of the Ultimate Guide for Gold in the Trump Era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. There's no obligation, only information. Text my name, Larry, to 989898. Do it today.